Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtottara Shata Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Samstapakacharya Jagat Guru Sevra the whole world Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter number 1, Text number 6. Etavan Sankhya Yogabhyam Swadharma Parinishtaya. Etavan Sankhya Yogabhyam Swadharma Parinishtaya Janma Labha Paraha Pumsam Janma Labha Parapumsam Ante Narayana Smritihi Ante Narayana Smritihi Etavan Sankhya Yogabhyam Swadharma Parinishtaya Janma Labha Parapumsam Ante Narayana Smritihi. Etavan Sankhya Yogabhyam Swadharma Parinishtaya Janma Labha Parapumsam Ante Narayana Smritihi. Etavan Sankhya Yogabhyam Swadharma Parinishtaya Janma Labha Parapumsam Ante Narayana Smritihi. Etavan Sankhya Yogabhyam Swadharma Parinishtaya Janma Labha Parapumsam Ante Narayana Smritihi. Etavan. All these, Sankhya, complete knowledge of matter and spirit. Yogabhyam, knowledge of mystic power. Swadharma, particular occupational duty. Parinishtaya, by full perception. Janma, birth. Labha, gain. Paraha, the supreme. Pumsam, of a person. Ante, at the end. Narayana, the personality of Godhead. Smritihi, remembrance. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. The highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. Please repeat this translation. The highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Narayana is the transcendental personality of Godhead beyond the material creation. Everything that is created, sustained, and at the end annihilated is within the compass of the Mahat Tattva, material principle, and is known as the material world. the existence of Narayana or the personality of Godhead is not within the jurisdiction of this Mahat Tattva, and as such the name, form, attributes, etc. of Narayana are beyond the jurisdiction of the material world. By the speculation of empiric philosophy, which discerns matter from spirit, or by cultivation of mystic powers, which ultimately helps the performer to reach any planet of the universe or beyond the universe, or by discharge of religious duties, one can achieve the highest perfection, provided one is able to reach the stage of Narayana Smriti, or constant remembrance of the personality of Godhead. This is possible only by the association of a pure devotee who can give a finishing touch to the transcendental activities of all jnanis, yogis or karmis in terms of prescribed duties defined in the scriptures. There are many historical instances of the achievement of spiritual perfection, such as that of the Sanakadi Rishis or the 9 celebrated Yogendras, who attained perfection only after being situated in devotional service of the Lord. None of the devotees of the Lord ever deviated from the path of devotional service by taking to other methods such as adopted by the jnanis or yogis. Everyone is anxious to achieve the highest perfection of his particular activity, and it is indicated herein that such perfection is Narayana Smriti, for everyone must endeavor his best, for which everyone must endeavor his best. In other words, life should be molded in such a manner that one is able to progressively remember the personality of Godhead in every step of life. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Etavan Sankhya Yoga Abhyam Swadharma Parinishthaya Janma Labha Parah Pumsam Ante Narayana Smritihi. Those who are followers of Vedic culture, who are properly trained in the Vedic civilization, the Vedic path, they are very well aware, such people are very well aware of certain basic facts and laws which govern this world. These facts or laws are that we are Atma, we are not this body, we will take birth again after we die, and in the past also we have taken birth, and this next birth and our previous births, all these are governed by laws of karma. And beyond all this is the Supreme Lord, Paramatma, who decides who has to get what body, how much successful one has to be in life, how big a person one will become in life, whether somebody will become a very rich man or not a very rich man, or a king or a great scholar. All these things are decided by one's karma. So these are all facts which every person in the Vedic culture was very well aware of. In the modern society, especially in the last 200 years, in India also, this knowledge is slowly diminishing from the minds of people, especially educated people, who do not believe in such things, nor are they trained in such a culture and such knowledge. Because of that, we see so many problems the society is facing. But formerly, 5,000 years ago, when Krishna was present on this planet, the whole world was following the tenets of Sanatana Dharma. And everybody in the world knew this. Almost everybody, except tribal people or who were not in the part of the Varnashrama Dharma. Everybody else were aware of this. In the last 5,000 years, this knowledge or this consciousness of basic facts, laws governing this universe, this world, and the lives of the people, gradually it started diminishing, and only people in this subcontinent, which is called as India, were more or less aware of this knowledge. So even till the Britishers came, at least in India everybody knew. Even illiterate people knew this. A person would have been very illiterate. He might not have any education. He may not even know how to read the alphabets, the Devanagari alphabet, A, E, and so on. His only source of knowledge is by hearing from other learned people. But even such a person in our country, in India, was well aware. There is Papa Karma, there is Punya Karma. If I perform sin, I will suffer. Or if I am suffering, it is because of my Papa Karma. People were very much aware of this fundamental laws. Prabhupada gives an instance in our country, maybe a few hundred years back, that a certain person, his father passed away. And before passing away, he told his son, "My dear son, I have to pay this person, such and such person, so much money. Please go and give it to him." So this person obeyed his father. After his father passed away, he took that sum of money and went to the other person who was having a shop or some trader. He went and told him, "My dear sir, my father passed away. He asked me to give this amount of money to you. Please take this." So the other person, instead of immediately grabbing the money, he said, wait, I have to check my accounts. Then he thoroughly checked his accounts and said, "In my account book, there is no such transaction. I have not taken any money from your father. So I am sorry, I cannot accept this money." So the other person who brought the money is insisting, no, sir, my father told that he owes you this money. You must take this money. And then he is forcing him to take. And the person who is supposed to receive, he is saying, "No, sir, I am extremely sorry. This money does not belong to me. In my accounts book, there is no such record of I having accepted any money from your father. So I cannot take this money." So you see, this is the consciousness. This Prabhupada narrates this instance to show how, in India at least, people were so much conscious of laws of karma, that if I take something which doesn't belong to me, that will give me karmic reactions. For that I will have to suffer. So this was India. And formerly, when Krishna was present on this planet, the whole world, people knew this knowledge, that we are Atma, we are not this body, there is Punarjanma, there is previous Janma, there is Papa Karma, there is Punya Karma, and above all this, there is Paramatma. Who is that Paramatma? Many people may not know. That is very, very confidential knowledge. But everyone knew there is a Paramatma. Who exactly is that Paramatma, how to achieve him, how to attain him, that not everybody would know. But these are all things which more or less pervaded the consciousness of every person, in India at least. Now, of course, the situation is changing and people have completely forgotten this knowledge, and this is all considered as mythology or belief system. So it is totally different. But at least previously people knew this. And now also there are many people who function as per this knowledge. But even for such persons who are followers of Vedic culture, who know all these basic facts that we are Atma, we are not this body, Papa Karma is there, Punya Karma is there, Paramatma is there, even for them and even for such people, the knowledge of what is the highest perfection of life, what is it that we have to ultimately achieve, what is that ultimate destination, even such persons are not aware, even in the Vedic culture. So what happens in a society where these people follow the Vedic culture, people are very much attached to Papa and Punya. They know, if I have to be very successful in life, I have to accumulate a lot of Punya. And I must avoid Papa Karma. So people keep doing Punya and keep avoiding Papa Karma, and they continue their lives. But the nature of the world is such that nobody can perfectly do this. There is nobody in this world who can say, I will do only Punya and I have made all my Papa Karma zero, and this way I will enjoy perfectly in this world without any suffering. Nobody is there like that in this world, because this world is created in such a way that in trying to perform Punya, always some or the other mistake will happen. That mistake is Papa Karma, and because of the Papa Karma, some suffering will always be there. Old age, disease and death will definitely be there. That anyway nobody can avoid. So even for people who are well trained in the Vedic culture of the basics of Vedic knowledge, Papa, Punya, Atma, Punarjanma, even for them to understand that Janma Labha Paraf Pumsam, the ultimate perfection of life, is Ante Narayana Smriti. That is very, very confidential knowledge. So that is why Srimad-Bhagavatam is considered as the essence of all the Vedas. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam shukamukhat amrita drava samyutam. If the Vedas are considered as a desire tree from which one can get whatever one wants, then Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam, the ripened fruit of that tree of the Vedic, of the Vedas, is this Srimad-Bhagavatam. So that is why Bhagavatam is considered as the essence of all the Vedic knowledge, because this knowledge is not aware to one, even of the to the people who are following the Vedic culture very strictly. So somebody may ask, why does Bhagavatam say that remembering Narayana at the end of life is considered as perfection? Why not something else as perfection? Why does Bhagavatam define this as perfection? Something else also could be considered as perfection. Generally, in the Vedic literature, the people are classified into three categories, as karmis, as jnanis, and yogis. So karmis are people who follow the Vedic rules and regulations very strictly, papa karma, punya karma, and by accumulating punya, they wish to enjoy in this world very nicely. So they are considered karmis. And for such a karmi, the perfection of life would be to get the highest position in this material world by accumulating huge amount of punya. So highest position in this world one can achieve is that of Brahma. The Bhagavatam, Prabhupada writes in purport in one place, if for 100 births somebody performs the duties of a Brahmana perfectly without any mistake, then he can achieve the position of Brahma. So that is what a karmi may consider as his perfection. For a jnani, the perfection would be to merge into the impersonal Brahman. Because jnani is a person who has done this papa punya business for many, many janmas, for many lifetimes, and he is fed up with all this material enjoyment and the power that comes out of performing punya. Because somebody performs a lot of punya, he becomes a very powerful person in the world, he becomes a very respectable person in the world, he becomes a very influential person in this world. So karmi is a person who desires all that. Jnani is a person who has had enough of all this papa and punya. He is looking for something else, and therefore his perfection is to merge into the impersonal Brahman. And yogi is a person, Shri Krishna Rukmini Satyabhama ki, Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And yogi is a person who wants Ashta Siddhis. Because yogi also is fed up with all this papa and punya business. Many yogis even perform the breathing process, try to increase their lifespan by by perfecting the process of pranayama. In this way, they extend their lifespan so that they will not die. So there are yogis who can live for 400 years, 500 years, 600 years, even more than that. There are yogis like that who are even now in the Himalayas. So for them, the perfection is Ashta Siddhi. So generally, Vedic literature classifies people of this world as either they fall into the category of karmi, perform papa and punya and become influential in the world, or as jnanis who want to merge into Brahman, or as yogis who want Ashta Siddhis. But even all these people are not aware of this most confidential knowledge of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. So that is why Bhagavatam is considered as the essence of all the scriptures. What is mentioned in the Bhagavatam is not found anywhere else in any of the other Vedic literatures. So even for people who are proper followers of Vedic culture, for them also Bhagavatam is a mystery. That is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted these two books, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam, from all the Vedic literatures as sufficient for our understanding of the Vedas, or the highest thing from the Vedas which we can understand from these two books, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam. So we come back to this question, why Ante Narayana Smriti? Why does Bhagavatam says Janma Labha Parapumsam Ante Narayana Smriti? Why remembrance of the Lord is considered as perfection of life? Because one can remember a person only if one has got a relationship with him. If somebody doesn't have any relationship with a person, then there is no question of remembering him. Either a person has to be our very close friend, or he should be our sworn enemy, only then we will be able to remember him. That is how we remember somebody. We remember somebody if we are very friendly with somebody, or if we had had a bitter fight with somebody, then also we will remember that person whole life. So to remember a person, we must have a relationship with him. So Bhagavatam says, Ante Narayana Smriti, remembering the Lord is the ultimate perfection of life, because that ultimate perfection of life is to establish our relationship with the Supreme Lord. So entire Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam is actually the science of our relationship with the Supreme Lord. And when that relationship with the Supreme Lord, Krishna, is completely mature, becomes completely perfect, then such a person, such a devotee, is able to remember the Lord 24 hours a day. And a person who remembers the Lord 24 hours a day, who is always remembering the Lord, such a person only can remember the Lord at the time of death. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram. Whatever one remembers at the time of death, he becomes that in his next life. And Prabhupada writes in the purport that whatever thoughts occupy a person's throughout his life, those thoughts only will come and influence him at the time of death. That means throughout a person's life, if a person has been attached to some particular thing, some person, or it may be some object or something else, those thoughts will come and into his mind at the time of death. Prabhupada explains this. So therefore, remembering the Lord at the time of death, as Bhagavatam says here, Ante Narayana Smriti, is only possible for a person who has developed his relationship with the Supreme Lord. So only one who has developed his relationship with the Supreme Lord perfectly, he can remember the Lord all the time. And a person who remembers the Lord at all times, only he can remember the Lord at the time of death. Ante Narayana Smriti. So this is actually the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam. So in the Bhagavatam, if we see right from the beginning, from Parikshit Maharaj to so many other devotees, their lives are mentioned in the Bhagavatam. Parikshit Maharaj is mentioned, Bhishma Deva is mentioned, Ajamila is mentioned, Priyavrata is mentioned, then Vritrasura is mentioned, the Pandavas are mentioned, all Prahlad Maharaj is mentioned, Dhruva Maharaj is mentioned, so many other devotees are mentioned, the names of devotees and each of their activities. Bharat Maharaj's name is mentioned. If we see the common denominator in Bhagavatam, in all their lives, how they passed away from this world, how they quit their bodies, how they remembered the Lord at the time of death, that is vividly described in all the chapters of the Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam says Ante Narayana Smriti is the perfection of life, and how great personalities, how powerful personalities in the past, they actually followed this and they remembered Narayana at the time of death. That is also very vividly described in the Bhagavatam. Now preliminary study of this Bhagavatam is Bhagavad Gita. Because in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he states the subject matter. What is the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita? Krishna establishes. In the 4th chapter, Krishna establishes in verse number 1, 2 and 3. What is this Bhagavad Gita all about? We call this as Bhagavad Gita because Bhagavan spoke the Gita, we call it as Bhagavad Gita. But when Krishna spoke to Arjuna, what did he call it? He didn't call it as Bhagavad Gita. It is Bhagavad Gita for us because we heard from Krishna speaking Arjuna. But what did Krishna call it? If we see, Krishna in the 4th chapter, Krishna says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Imam vivasvate yogam proktavan aham avyayam. Vivasvan manave praha manurikshava bravit. So Krishna called it as yoga. We call it as Bhagavad Gita because Krishna spoke to Arjuna. So Krishna called the subject matter as yoga. Imam vivasvate yogam. I spoke this yoga, vivasvate, onto Vivasvan. And Vivasvan manave praha, he spoke to Manu. Then Manu ikshvakave abravit. Manu spoke to Ikshvaku. Then evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakalaneha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. In due course of time, this knowledge which was received in parampara, yogo nashta parantapa, kalaneha mahata. In due course of time, this was lost. That is what Krishna says in the next verse. So that we are all aware of that. Then in the third verse, Krishna says, Sa evayam mayatedya yoga prokta puratanaha bhakto sime sakacheti rahasyam hetad uttamam. Then Krishna says, again, this knowledge which I had originally spoken to Vivaswate, onto Vivaswan, then Vivaswan spoke to Manu, Manu spoke to Ikshvaku, then in due course of time, which was handed down in Parampara, which was lost, Sakala Neha Mahata, Yogo Nashtaha, it was lost. Today, Krishna says that knowledge is rahasyam, it is very, very, very secret, it is confidential, it is very mysterious. Prabhupada translates rahasyam as mystery. That knowledge, saevayam mayatedya, yoga prokta puratanaha, yoga. And in the translation, Prabhupada writes, yoga is that very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme today, told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend. So we call it as Bhagavad Gita, because Krishna spoke to Arjuna. Krishna calls it as yoga, that is how Krishna uses the word, imam vivasvate yogam. And yoga is translated by Srila Prabhupada as science of relationship with the Supreme. So this science of relationship with the Supreme is rahasyam, is very, 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 very confidential, is very mysterious. Even for people who are strict followers of the Vedic Dharma, who are aware of Atma, Papa, Punya, Punarjanma, there is next life, laws of karma are governing, there is a Paramatma. Even now if you go in many places, people will tell us all these basic facts. There is Paramatma is everything, we are Atma. Even now people have this knowledge. But even for such persons, this is very rahasyam, this is very confidential. So therefore, this Bhagavad Gita is considered as the essence of all the scriptures. The knowledge that Krishna explains to Arjuna is very, very confidential, as Krishna himself admits that this is rahasyam. What is that rahasyam? What is so mysterious about that? If we ask, mystery is that science of relationship with the Supreme Lord. That is where the mystery lies. And that is the reason many, many Sanskrit scholars cannot explain the Bhagavad Gita properly. Although they may be very expert in the Sanskrit language, the problem is such people, such persons, although they are expert in Sanskrit language, they have not developed their relationship with the Supreme Lord. They are not into any relationship with the Supreme Lord. They are just like any other common person in this world. Common person in this world has not perfected his relationship with the Supreme Lord. Therefore, he cannot explain that subject matter. Suppose there is a very big person. Suppose there is a prime minister or a very, very rich businessman. Unless we have got a very personal relationship with that very big person, we cannot talk about him. What is his, we cannot talk about that subject matter. So, there may be so many people in this world who may be aware that he is the prime minister of this country, or he is the president of this country, or he is a very rich man. But only his son, or his father, or his mother, or his sister, or wife, somebody who is into a very intimate relationship with that very big person, whom the whole world just knows as a great person, only he can talk about what is the relationship with him, what he likes, what he doesn't like, all this confidential subject matter. So, scholars, when they explain Bhagavad Gita, they are all ordinary conditioned souls who have not developed their relationship with the Supreme Lord in any way. Like any other person of this world, intellectually they are superior to the other people who may not be expert in that particular language. Whereas a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada is not only a Sanskrit scholar, the Acharya is also a Sanskrit scholar. He is not only a Sanskrit scholar, he is already situated into a very confidential relationship with the Supreme Lord. So he knows everything about Krishna, he knows how to relate with Krishna, he knows what Krishna likes, what Krishna doesn't like, he can know the heart of the Lord, he can know the mood of the Lord. Such a person, when he explains Bhagavad Gita, that is actually authentic. So Bhagavad Gita is nothing but yoga, as Krishna himself calls it as yoga. This yoga is science of relationship with the Supreme Lord. So if you ask anybody in this world, there are so many people in this world who appreciate Bhagavad Gita, who memorize the verses of the Bhagavad Gita, who have great awe and reverence for the Bhagavad Gita. They keep copies of the Gita in their home. They even promote Bhagavad Gita. If you ask anybody, sir, can you explain what is the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita in one line? What is it the Bhagavad Gita is talking about? Most people would not be able to explain. They may say so many things, karma yoga is there, jnana yoga is there, success and failure, management, so many things people say. But you ask people in one line, can you explain, sir, what is the Bhagavad Gita talking about? What is it that it is, essence of Bhagavad Gita, what it is? People will not be able to explain. Whereas this verse is actually the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Sa evayam maya tedya yoga prokta puratanaha bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam etad uttamam. This ancient knowledge which I spoke to Vivaswan, then Vivaswan spoke to Manu, Manu spoke to Ikshvaku, it is rahasyam, and I am speaking to you. There also Krishna says, bhaktosi me sakha, you are my friend and devotee, therefore I am speaking this knowledge to you. And Prabhupada translates yoga as science of relationship with the Supreme. So in one word, in one phrase, if you have to explain what is Bhagavad Gita, if anybody asks, what is it the Bhagavad Gita talking about? It is talking of the science of relationship with the Supreme Lord. How we can relate with the Supreme Lord. Everybody has a relationship with the Supreme Lord. At least in India, all Hindus, they have a relationship with the Supreme Lord. But that relationship is more or less like people go and ask something from the Lord, that I want this, I want that, please fulfill my desires. That is also one level of relating with the Supreme Lord. But the higher ways of relating with the Supreme Lord, that is the subject matter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, which great kings like Parikshit Maharaj, Bhishma Deva, Prahalada, Dhruva, the Pandavas, Kunti Devi, all these personalities, their relationship with the Supreme Lord is very, 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 very intimate. So therefore they are called as pure devotees of the Supreme Lord. They engage in service of the Supreme Lord without expecting anything for themselves in return. So that is the standard of their devotional service. So subject matter of Bhagavad Gita is relationship with the Supreme Lord. Only one who has fully developed his relationship with the Supreme Lord can remember the Supreme Lord 24 hours a day, all the time. And only one who remembers the Supreme Lord all the time, he can remember the Lord at the time of death. Janmalabha parapumsam ante narayana smriti, as this verse says. So ante narayana smriti is possible only for someone who has developed his relationship perfectly with the Supreme Lord. So how to develop this relationship with the Supreme Lord? That is also mentioned by Prabhupada in the 4th chapter. In verse number 10, in the purport, Prabhupada mentions that Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mam Upashrita Bahavo Jnana Tapasa Puta Madbhavam Agataha. Krishna says, Vita, freed from Raga, Bhaya and Krodha. Raga means attachment, Bhaya is fear, Krodha means anger. Vita, free from Raga, Bhaya and Krodha, Manmaya Mam Upashrita, many persons took shelter of me, Mam Upashrita, Bahavo Jnana Tapasa, they became purified by knowledge of me. This verse number 10 in the 4th chapter. And in that 4th chapter, verse number 10, Prabhupada writes, the signs of devotional service according to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is Adau Shraddha, Tata Sadhu Sangha, Atha Bhajana Kriya, Atha Anartha Nivritti Syat, Tato Nishta, Ruchistatha, Atha Shaktihi, Atha Ashaktihi, Tato Bhavaha, Tata Premaha, Sadakanam Ayam Premnaha, Pradurbhave Bhavet Kramaha. So this is the science of devotional service. So what is Bhagavad Gita? Krishna just mentions in one verse. Saevayam Mayatedya Yoga Prokta Puratana. Now how one can develop one's relationship with the Supreme Lord progressively, that is the whole science of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is what the disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Goswamis, have written elaborate literatures on this. How one's relationship, one's dormant relationship with the Supreme Lord is developed gradually. Adau Shraddha Tato Sadhu Sangha, in this way. And when someone gradually develops his relationship with the Supreme Lord and then comes to the stage of prema, love of Krishna, then such a person is ready to enter the spiritual world, because only such a person can remember the Supreme Lord at the time of death. So Ante Narayana Smriti is considered as the perfection because such a remembrance of the Supreme Lord at the time of death is only possible for somebody who has developed his relationship with the Supreme Lord. So according to Bhagavatam, to summarize the whole verse again, developing a loving relationship with the Supreme Lord is the perfection of life. Contrary to the common perception in the world, the common perception or what mostly people desire is power is a sign of success. If people can become very influential, if a person can become very powerful, then a person is considered as successful in the society. Powerless people are not considered as successful in the society. Anybody who has power in the society, the more power he has in the society, it may be intellectual power, maybe financial power, maybe some other kind of power. More power a person has in the society, he is considered very successful. Then, but the question arises, suppose such people achieve power. Are all powerful people happy and satisfied? That is what the question arises. So Prabhupada gives the example, why rich man commits suicide? Why billionaires are committing suicide? There are many powerful people in the world. They are very influential. They are very powerful. And because of their power, they are definitely very successful in the society. So they should be happy in all respects. But they undergo depression. They commit suicide. They have so many problems in their life. So by seeing the world around us, we can safely conclude that just by accumulating power alone, person cannot become happy and satisfied. One must develop a loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. The more somebody develops his loving relationship with the Supreme Lord, the more happy and satisfied a person becomes. So therefore, developing one's dormant relationship with Krishna is actually the purpose of life. And if one can perform this activity very seriously and sincerely, the deeper somebody's relationship with the Supreme Lord, the more happy and satisfied such a person is. So that is what we learn from this verse of the Bhagavatam, that if somebody does this and follows this path, then at the time of death, he will be automatically inclined to think of the Supreme Lord. And that is what Bhagavatam says, that is the perfection of life. Janma labha parapumsam ante narayana smriti. So with this we'll stop today's Srimad-Bhagavatam lecture. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.